Hola, bienvenidos al podcast del Conditional para Español 3. Welcome, I'm Señora Stanias, and in this podcast, we will be talking about the conditional tense in Spanish. I'll make sure you have your grammar packet with you as we go through this so that you're taking notes and writing down examples as well as any questions you might have in the podcast. Students will be able to use the conditional tense in their written and spoken Spanish at the end of this podcast, and we also are going to learn how to make polite requests in Spanish. The conditional tense in Spanish expresses what you would do and what would happen under certain circumstances in English. And I've given you some examples of the forms. You can see with an AR verb like visitar. Visitaría, visitarías, visitaría, visitaríamos, visitaríais, visitarían. An ER verb, comer. Comería, comerías, comería, comeríamos, comeríais, comerían. An IR verb like aplaudir. Aplaudiría, aplaudirías, aplaudiría, aplaudiríamos, aplaudiríais, aplaudirían. Hopefully you've noticed that the endings are all the same. Does not matter if it is an ER verb, an IR verb, or an AR verb. An example, yo no comería dulces antes de la cena. Los niños no jugarían en la calle. The conditional tense is formed much like the future tense. The endings are the same, as I just said, for all the verbs, both regular and irregular. For regular verbs, as you saw with those three examples, you simply add the appropriate endings to the infinitive. Notice, atención, all forms of the conditional tense have an accent mark written in. Here are our irregular verbs in the conditional. Hopefully you'll notice they are the same as the irregulars for the future. In that sense, they have the same stem in order to create the conditional tense. So you have caber, cabría, decir, diría, hacer, haría, poder, podría, poner, pondría, haber, habría, querer, querría, saber, sabría, salir, saldría, tener, tendría, valer, valdría, venir, vendría. Atención. Please notice also that if we use these polite expressions like me gustaría, me gustarían, or te gustaría, these are examples also of the conditional. Like me gustaría un vaso de leche, por favor. A nice way to ask for something. Let's do a little compare and contrast. While in English the conditional is a compound verb form, in other words, it has more than one word to make it up. We have to use that auxiliary verb, would, and the main verb. In Spanish, that is expressed as a simple verb form. That means that it only has one word, one conjugated verb. Yo no me pondría ese vestido. ¿Vivirían ustedes en otro país? We can use a conditional to make polite requests, and this is done quite frequently. ¿Podrías abrir la ventana, por favor? ¿Sería tan amable de venir a mi oficina? We can also use the conditional in Spanish as in English. It expresses the future in relation to a past action or state of being. In other words, the future indicates what will happen, whereas the conditional indicates what would happen. A couple of examples. Creo que mañana hará sol. The future. Creía que hoy haría sol. In this case, we used the conditional. We thought this would happen. Would and used to. Remember, in English, would is often used with a verb in order to express the conditional, but we can also use that would when we want to say we used to do something. As in, oh, when I was young, I would go to the store all the time. That's that habitual past action. Those habitual past actions, remember, in Spanish we use the imperfect tense and not the conditional. So some examples of that. Íbamos al parque los sábados. De adolescentes comíamos mucho. They both require imperfect tense, not the conditional. Finally, the conditional of probability. We talked about this future of probability last lesson. Spanish also has a conditional of probability, which expresses conjecture or probability about a past action, condition, or event. In English, we would probably need to use phrases like, I wondered, or probably, or it must have been. In Spanish, we simply use the conditional form of the verb. Examples. Serían las 11 de la noche cuando Elvira me llamó. Sonó el teléfono. ¿Llamaría Emilio para cancelar nuestra cita? This ends this podcast. Make sure you write down your questions. Gracias y hasta mañana.